Hi everybody, Steve Griffiths here, developer of the MTPredictor software program. In this video I'd like to do a quick roundup and have a look at how the US E-minis unfolded yesterday, which was Wednesday the 19th of September. First of all, if we look at the standard and automatic trade setups, you can see on this 3-minute YM chart we had a DP sell, but this was against a blue STF. So standard traders would have ignored this. But I'm going to come back and have a bit more detailed look at this for the advanced traders among you later in the video. On the ES as well, the main setups were sells, but again they were all against a blue STF, therefore standard traders would have ignored these. The NQ did very nicely. It had a very lovely TS3 buy setup here, and you can see this buy setup is now in the direction of this blue STF. The STF gives the large degree trend direction, so blue means up, therefore a buy setup is in the direction of the large degree trend, therefore it's a good one to take. So standard traders could have taken this and pulled out a nice 2.6R profit. Remember, we use position sizing to adjust the number of contracts, lots or shares depending on your initial risk and your account size. This is kept constant across all your trades. That's why when the losses come through, and let's face it, any system, any trade will have losses, but the important point is these losses were kept small and the profit are large, in this case 2.6 times the initial risk, and that's where position sizing is so important. So a nice trade on the NQ. If we look at the Russell Index, I just want to change that back to a 3-minute chart. And here we can see we had again some nice trade setups. First one was this TS4 buy setup here. STF was black stroke blue, therefore this was a good one for standard traders to take. So let's put the analysis on. You can see the market went up to the first target there. The STF, if I look at it when it hit the first target, which was there, the STF was not quite at the strength band, therefore you'd come out of that first target. The result was a nice 2.3R profit. You then had another setup here later in the day. Double bottom, so this trade would not have been stopped out. It went up and did not reach the first target, but if we look at what the profit was, it was at least 2.4R, therefore at the very least you should have had the stop to break even. So at the very least this trade should have been a break even trade, in other words nothing at all. You probably wouldn't have considered this buy setup right at the end of the day because you only had a few bars left to go. So overall the Russell Index would have had a good day as well, whereas mainly this TS4 buy setup that would have been stopped out, or MIT at the target there for a nice 2.3R. But now let's come back to this DP sell on the YM, and I'd like to show you an exception I use when you're an advanced trader and you're looking to take trades that are against the STF direction. First and foremost, we normally look at the large degree trend. So if we go out to the 15-minute chart, you can see the market was going up here. So if we go back to the last swing pivot of the last swing down to the low, you see here's the last swing down into the low. So we come back to this pivot here. If we put the DP on from here, you can see all around this area here we're at 15-minute DP resistance. So if we come down to the shorter term chart again, can you see that this whole area here is in and around 15-minute resistance. So first of all, the YM is actually at or in and around large degree resistance, so that's a good consideration to take when you're looking to initiate a short trade. But that's not what I really want to look at. The exception I want to look at is actually, no, before I do that, also again, if we look at this last swing down here into this low and we take the DP off this pivot, you can see that you're also at DP resistance, which actually nailed the very high of the day. So before we even get into this exception, there were a couple of other reasons why this would have been a good trade to consider, because we're at 15-minute DP resistance and also at 3-minute DP resistance as well. But the main reason, just take that off, the main reason I like this is because of the exception is that it was at the end of a 5-wave sequence. So if we put the Elliott waves on, right mouse click, Elliott waves, intermediate, can you see how, actually I'll just zoom out a bit, can you see how from this pivot here the market went up in 5 waves? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a lovely 5-wave sequence with the high here pretty much at the minimum wave 5 WPT. We know that a 5-wave sequence is a trend termination sequence, so can you see how, knowing that this sequence here was ending this trend, it gave you added confidence that you could take this DP sell even though it was against a blue STF. Now compare that with the difference of the DP sells here on the ES, because if I go up here and do Elliott wave intermediate, you can see it's finding an ABC pattern or some other pattern that's not a 5-wave sequence. In other words, these DP cells here are not at the end of a clear 5-wave sequence. Can you see the difference? There's no clear 5-wave sequence going up into that DP or any of these DPs. Compare that with the NQ and you have a lovely 5-wave sequence going up here, and that's the difference. So bearing in mind that this is at the end of a nice clean clear 5-wave sequence, you can now consider this DP sell. Now again, this is for advanced traders only because it's against the blue STF, but this is the one of the exceptions I talk about in the advanced trading when you want to take a signal, if you're an advanced trader, against the STF color. So there you were, short from pretty much the high of the day. In fact, actually that bar there where the signal came in was the very high of the day, so a great position to be short from. Market comes down into the first target. If we now look at the STF, you can see back here the STF was strong, therefore when it hits the first target, which it did here, we swap to the ATR stop. ATR stop would have held you short, and therefore you'd have held this into the close, which was about here, and you can see the result was 6.9 or pretty much 7. About this, can we call it 7R just for easy maths? So there you were, an absolutely brilliant trade that had you short from the very high of the day on the YM yesterday down into the close for approximately 7R profit. In other words, using position sizing again, turning initial risk of approximately $385 into a profit of approximately $2,700. So a very, very good trade. But can you see the reason why I was considering this trade here, even though it was against the STF? And the reason is because it was at the end of a very clear and very obvious 5-wave sequence going up into here. Again, this is only a trade for advanced traders among you, but it's a good one to take, and as you can see resulted in a very good profitable trade on the YM there yesterday.